Shalom family and Shamani life. Thank you for joining me at Unsectarian Wisdom, and as usual, I am a healthy, wise, strong, protected, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Family, today we're going to jump into a Masonic Bible. Alright? I'm not going to read the whole thing. Obviously, I don't never read the whole thing in one sitting. But we just going to go through some pages. You know what I'm saying? See how things go, see what we find out, see if we find out any interesting information. I just wanted to get me one. You know, I just had this feeling. It's like, let me buy me a Masonic Bible. Got this off eBay. I think I paid like 20 for it, maybe 30. But anyway, I'm going to have the pages up on the screen that we going through that I'm going to read. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in, family. Oh, before I start reading, though, before I get to the part that probably a lot of people probably click off, I'm going to show y'all some pictures first that are out of this Bible. So let's go ahead and do that first, and then we'll get to the reading. Some images that are in here. Alright, here's the cover. This is who the Bible was given to in 1944. A brother Clarence Denton Paris. He is initiated March 20th, 1944. Passed March 21st, 1952. Raised November 25th, 1952. Okay, same year he passed and raised. A few days later, whatever that means. I'm not sure, to be honest, I don't. But yeah, this is a 19. What year is this copy? I know it says 1944, but it might be older than that. Copyright 1924. No, I don't think this is that old. I think it's old, but it's not that old, I don't think. Well, either way, this is the version printed between, because the dates I see in here are, hold on family, I see copyright 1924 to 1940 in Mr. Clarence Denton received the book, as you see, in 1945. So this book is somewhere between 1924 and 1940 years old, or 1945. Anyway, let's keep going. Oh yeah, I guess, yeah. See, copyright 1924 to, oh okay, never mind. This page says to 1951. But he received it in 1945, so it's somewhere between 1924 years old and the date he received it. So the Bible and King Solomon's Temple in Masonry, the John Wesley Kelchner illustrated. Oh, my uncle told me something interesting about this, because he said his father was a Mason. He said his father had a different book than this, so obviously I don't have the one with all the good. This is probably just like a beginner's. But apparently there's some other books out there we need to get that the Masons got. Some way, somehow, we'll get them. Okay, these are some pictures, illustrations that are in the book. Pictures of Solomon's Temple that they had professionally done from the scriptures in the Bible, is from what I read. This is a bird's eye view of the temple. Screenshot if you want, family. Plan of King Solomon's Temple, Plate 2. Plate 3. Front elevation. Restoration of King Solomon's Temple by John Wesley Kelchner. This guy had a bunch of artists and architects come together, and they studied the Bible and got the best dimensions and architecture plans they could from the scriptures. And you know, he had some what are they called, the architect, well anyway, got the architects and the artists together, and they tried to basically draw as accurate a rendition of the Solomon's temple as they could from the scriptures. Plate 4, Restoration of King Solomon's Temple by John West. Oh, okay. Side elevation of the temple and what does this say? Whatever. Well, nah, let me not say that. Let me see the picture say so y'all can know what it says under the picture. Because I know sometimes it'd be blurry. Let's see, what does that say? That says, oh, since I got it out now, hold on. This says that you can't see. It says this one, this is plate 1, and this is a image of forecourt, porch, and front elevation. You can already see what that one was. Okay, so this is, oh, I already showed you, but just again, Restoration of King Solomon's Temple by John Wesley. Oh, plate 3, front elevation. All right, this is side elevation of the temple and forecourt. Plate 4. This is a picture detailing gathering materials for the temple. This is plate 5. This is, okay, this doesn't have an illustration, but I know this is probably, that's Solomon. It's supposed to be Solomon in the seat, and I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be the judgment seat where Solomon sat to give his judgments. Like in the Bible where they had the scene where the two wives, or the two women who had two babies, and they didn't know whose is who, and Solomon gave the declaration, all right, cut the baby in half. That room. Sorry about this image. This one's a horrible, but you know, it's 2 pages, and you know how those old Bible books are. They so tight together. But anyway, King Solomon's Temple, view from northeast corner. Alright, this one is interior of King Solomon's Palace, banquet scene, King Solomon's Temple and Citadel. Plate 7. Which you guys can read. You can see that on the screen, but go to people right here drinking wine, partying. This is plate 8. House of Pharaoh's daughter, King Solomon's wife or queen, King Solomon's Temple and Citadel. Plate 8. This is in her area. I guess that's her right there sitting, enjoying the view of her court. It said that in the book that Solomon, I didn't read all of it. I didn't read everything we're about to read today, but I read a bit. And it said that Solomon had this place built to mimic Egypt as much as possible, to make his queen, who is Egyptian, feel at home. Oh, okay, that looked like a peacock right there. There go her servants. There go the, I think that looked like the little fanning things they used to fan them to keep them cool in the summertime. Go some ladies laying about, some guards. Alright. Now we have the porch of pillars of King Solomon's Temple and Citadel. Plate 9. Then we got porch of judgment of King Solomon's Temple and Citadel. Oh yeah, see, I was right from that one picture. Well, actually that one, well, I don't know, I could have been wrong. Maybe that, because that one did look a little different. It looks similar, but anyway. Now we got House of the Forest of Lebanon, King Solomon's Temple and Citadel, plate 11. This would have been a place to see, man. I would like to have seen the original. I'd also like to see what Babylon looked like back in the day. I wonder if it looked anything like, if you've seen that movie Alexander with the with Angelina Jolie, and when they went to Babylon, if it looked anything like that, I'd like to see what it looked like. Not obviously, I don't want to partake. I mean, we live in modern day Babylon, so I don't want to partake in their ways. But I'd love to see the architecture and just peep how they live. Shoot, even Atlantis, man. Explore life. So the East Gate, King Solomon's Temple. Israel encamped round about the tabernacle in the wilderness of Sinai. Plate 13. Plate 14. Great porch of the temple, King Solomon's Temple, plate 14. Like they got some horns. They playing some horns right there. I don't know if they bringing somebody in or if that's a tent out there they camping with. King Solomon's treasure room, plate 15. This would have been the room in the Bible. If anybody, I believe it's in the Apocrypha, where it talks about King. No, I think it's in the Old Testament too. Or I forget which king. It wasn't Solomon, but it was one of the kings after Solomon. When the Greeks came to visit Israel. And well, I think they probably did it for the Babylonians too, or was it one of them or two of them? It was either the Babylonians or the Greeks, or both of them. But anyway, an emissary from either Babylon or the Greek nation, I can't remember which one it was, came to Israel, and the king at the time was so proud of the nation and how much gold and stuff, he wasn't thinking, and he brought them inside to show them, their treasure, show them this room with all the treasure they had in it. I bet there's more gold in it than this picture showing more treasure. Because remember, after he showed them, they plotted to overthrow Jerusalem, which they did, and which the Most High allowed because of the sins of the people, of the nation of Jerusalem, of Yisrael at the time, or Yehudi, or the sins of the Ivrit. Let's go ahead to the next one. The holy place, King Solomon's Temple, plate 16. This is the place before the Holy of Holies. This is outside of the room where they keep the covenant, the ark. Plate 17. The most holy place. The Holy of Holies, King Solomon's Temple, plate 17. See the cherubims? I think we only got maybe like 3 more pictures left, and then we'll get to the reading. This is... Okay, this one doesn't have an illustration. But that looks like the entrance to the temple again. Like we seen, or the front porch. The one where I said the horns, it looked like they got horns, it looked like that same entrance. But from the front. That first one seemed like, with the people holding the horns, it seemed further back and from the side. This looks like it's supposed to be an image directly in front of it. This would have been a beautiful place to see, man. Now, okay, I think this is the last, and there's one more image after this, my bad. Bird's eye view, King Solomon's Temple and Citadel. The temple is up here on top, right here where you see the mouse cursor. And this is where they had the parties at. And this down here is where Solomon's personal quarters were, and his wife down here. I don't know which house is which, but this looks like maybe it might be his wife's because of the pillars. You know, because they like them pillars in Egypt back there, so that might be it right there. It looked like a pool area, because remember in her picture she had a pool area. This looked like a public walkthrough for your area, so I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, go to the next one. And this is the final picture. Miscellaneous details of King Solomon's temple. Plate 19. Okay. Alright. Let's go ahead and get ready to hop into the reading, family. Let me get my book ready so I can start. Oh wait, hold on. I'm on the wrong page. Usually the pictures would be at the end, but I want to go ahead and show y'all the pictures before we started reading. So I said, why not? Wise to the not, sir. Alright. Hold on, let me take a little sippy sip. Okay. The Masonic Creed. As an expression of the simplest form of the faith of Masonry, not exhaustive, but incontrovertible and suggestive, the following is the Masonic belief. Hold on, let me read that again. As an expression of the simplest form of the faith of Masonry, not exhaustive, but incontrovertible and suggestive, the following is the Masonic belief. There is one God, the Father of all men. The Holy Bible is the great light in Masonry, and the rule and guide for faith and practice. Man is immortal. Character determines destiny. Love of man is next to love of God. Man's first duty. Love of man is next to love of God. Man's first duty. Prayer, communion of man with God is helpful. Recognizing the impossibility of confining the teaching of Masonry to any fixed forms of expression, yet acknowledging the value of authoritative statements of fundamental principles, the following is proclaimed as, let me read that one part again. Recognizing the impossibility of confining the teaching of Masonry to any fixed forms of expression, yet acknowledging the value of authoritative statements of fundamental principles, the following is proclaimed as the Masonic teaching. Masonry teaches man to practice charity and benevolence, to protect chastity, to respect the ties of blood and friendship, to adopt the principles and revere the ordinances of religion, to assist the feeble, guide the blind, raise up the downtrodden, shelter the orphan, guard the altar, support the government, inculcate morality. I don't know if I pronounced that wrong. Inculcate morality, promote learning, love man, fear God, implore his mercy and hope for happiness. Implore his mercy and hope for happiness. Anyway, let's go to the next page. You want to pause and read it. If you don't like the way I'm reading, pause and read it. Okay, here we go. The meaning of Masonry. In all the rich symbolism of ancient craft, Masonry, In all the rich symbolism of ancient craft, Masonry, two symbols, or symbolic themes, predominate. One is the search for light. The other is the labor of building. The source of light is the Holy Bible, and the grand representation of the builder's art is King Solomon's temple. Hold on, let me read that first in it. In all the rich symbolism of ancient craft Masonry, two symbols or symbolic themes predominate. One is the search for light, the other is the labor of building. The source of light is the Holy Bible, and the grand representation of the builder's art is King Solomon's temple. Searching persistently and building carefully, the candidate travels slowly toward the east as he pursues his quest for light and more light, and still further light in masonry. He learns by the way to use the working tools of the stone craftsman until at last he finds himself portraying the character of the greatest of all legendary builders, the master architect of King Solomon's temple, searching and building light and the temple. The two dominant Masonic themes are distinct but not separate, complementary rather than supplementary, and the search and the labor are not completed by the candidate within the lodge. Light is revealed, and the sacred source of all light is clearly indicated by the search for complete illumination must be, Light is revealed, and the sacred source of all light is clearly indicated, but the search for complete illumination must be eternal. The temple in the Masonic ritual is almost, but not quite completed. The allegory rises from a physical to a spiritual temple, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens, regardless of symbolic revelations in Masonic degrees, apart from the lodge. The unending search and the labor toward perfection begun in the lodge must continue with the initiated Mason throughout his life. The traditions of Solomon. It was natural that imaginative stonemasons, long before the development of anything like our modern fraternity, should have felt a kinship with the great builders of all ages. It was natural also that they should have acknowledged a peculiar attraction for the most famous and glorious of all building enterprises, King Solomon's temple and citadel. King Solomon's temple and citadel. Interest and attraction for the wonderful structure on Mount Moriah have increased rather than diminished during the 600 and more years of recorded Masonic history. Until today, the Temple of Solomon is the spiritual home of every Mason. What do we know about the temple? Its form, its beauties, its historical and religious background. The tabernacle in the wilderness. If some of these pages get cut off, family, I'm going to read the whole pages that are on the screen for the most part. But if anything gets cut off because I decided, you don't need to read all that. Because some of it, as I go through, I didn't take a picture of all the pages because some of them are just verses from the Bible. And you want to go read that yourself later, you can do that. The tabernacle in the wilderness. A thorough understanding of the details. So I don't just leave you. Some of the pages that I didn't take a picture of, all they are is inserts from instructions on how to build the temple. And like I said, you can go to Numbers. You can go to Leviticus and get that information. I'm trying to remember, is it in Genesis 2? In Exodus 2. The directions for the tabernacle. Anyway, let's keep going. The tabernacle in the wilderness. A thorough understanding of the details of the primitive tabernacle of Israel is essential to grasp fully the fundamental principles evolved in the construction of King Solomon's temple. An intimate knowledge of the tabernacle's contents and their relation to one another is necessary to comprehend the ritualistic system developed by Solomon and his priests. A study of the ceremonies, the sacrificial offerings, and the priestly ministrations of the tabernacle will reveal the great spiritual mystery of the indwelling God, as made manifest by Moses during the sojourn in the wilderness. Moses, during his prolonged stay of 40 days and 40 nights on Mount Sinai, appears to have visualized the form which the tabernacle should take. The subsequent building of the tabernacle, the system of worship adopted, and the structure of government developed by Moses under divine guidance, have inspired his race and impressed the whole of mankind. Moses chose as his chief architect Bezalel, a direct descendant of Terah, one of the master builders of Ur of the Chaldeans, and as chief assistant Aholiab, also a direct descendant of Terah, and by marriage of the line of Tubal-Cain, traditionally the first instructor of artificers in brass and iron. Bezalel was unusually endowed with the Spirit of God and wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. These three outstanding geniuses gave to the world the most beautiful and magnificent religious structure ever conceived and erected for a nomadic people. Materials for the tabernacle: gold, silver, brass, and iron, silks, fine linen, and a fabric of goat's hair, ram skin and badger skin, shittim wood or akai timber, onyx stone, sardius, topaz, carbuncle, emerald, sapphire, diamond, liger, agate, amethyst, beryl, and jasper. Also blue, purple, and scarlet dyes. All of these went into the construction of the tabernacle. The value of the materials. A fair estimate of the value of gold and silver used in the construction of the tabernacle was: gold, 29 talents and 730 shekels. And in between the years of 1929 and 1945, that was about worth about $950,209.86. Silver, 100 talents, and this is the I believe we're talking about the tabernacle, which was the campsite tabernacle, family, not the actual building yet. Silver, 100 talents, 1,775 shekels, 3,550 bakah, or $364,338.95, making a total value of the gold and silver used fully $1,314,548.81. To this must be added the value of brass, precious stones, wood and linen, and other textile fabrics, skins of animals, etc., and oils, spices, and incense, which were supplied for the service. So if you want to try to calculate that for today's price, be my guest. I haven't done it, but I want to. How the materials were acquired. The Israelites, a nomadic tribe roaming about through Chaldea, Assyria, and Canaan, and finally locating in the land of Goshen in Egypt, naturally accumulated wealth by trading with the natives through whose countries they passed. They increased their flocks through attention and by seeking the well-watered localities for pasture. They industriously converted the wool from the sheep, and the hair from the goats, and camels into cloth, and wove grass fibers into fabrics, from all of which they made tents, rugs, clothing, and other useful articles. But possibly their greatest wealth was acquired just before they left Egypt, when we are told that they spoiled the Egyptians. Page 9. Okay, yeah, I skipped, because the rest was just... Yeah, I skipping to 9 because, like I told you, fam, the rest is really just stuff that you can read out of the Bible. Like, it's talking about the brass laver, the sanctuary, and the tabernacle. It's basically like I said, if you go to Genesis and I believe Leviticus, it's just breaking down the materials used to make the instruments for the tabernacles and all that. But anyway, so page 9, the most holy place. If you want me to read those pages later, just, message me, let me know. We'll come back at some point and read them. But like I said, you can go back to the Bible and read them if you want. If you want to read about how many pieces of gold and silver and this took to make a ladle or a lamp, then, but I don't feel like reading all that right now. Again, because I already read it. The most holy place. The second or inner chamber, called the most holy place, was 10 cubits, 20 feet on each side, and consequently a perfect cube. It contained the Ark of the Covenant, in which were the 2 tables of stone. This place, the Holy of Holies, the most sacred portion, of the divinely appointed structure was surrounded on three sides by highly polished walls of pure gold, the veil of fine twined linen in blue, purple, and scarlet, richly embroidered and ornamented with figures of cherubim in gold, hanging from the tops of 4 pillars of shittim wood, overlaid with pure gold, and resting in sockets of silver, defined the eastern and only entrance. Over all this magnificent foursquare, resplendent place hung the beautiful blue, purple, and scarlet curtain, richly embroidered with gold cherubim. The reflection of these brilliant hues and of the cherubim upon the walls of polished gold must have produced a weird, startling, awe-inspiring, and overpowering effect upon all those who were ordained to enter this most sacred place. Within this enclosure there is but one article of furniture, and its contents, that is, the Ark of the Covenant containing the testimony. The Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was an ark or chest of shittim wood, 2 1/2 cubits long, and 1 1/2 cubits high, 5 feet by 3 by 3, overlaid with gold, and embellished with a crown of gold extending around the chest upon the top edge. 4 rings of pure gold were set in the 4 corners, 2 on one side and 2 on the other, through which were passed the wooden staves, overlaid with gold used in carrying the sacred chest. The lid or covering was the mercy seat, and was 1 piece of pure gold, 2 1/2 cubits long, and 1 1/2 cubits broad, 5 feet by 3. Upon each end of this mercy seat were cherubim, made of pure beaten gold. These cherubim stretched forth their wings on high, so as to cover the mercy seat, their faces being inward toward the mercy seat. In this ark or chest, and directly underneath the mercy seat, was the testimony or 10 commandments upon 2 tablets of stone. The Ark of the Covenant, thus fittingly enshrined, was the only piece of furniture in the most holy place. It was visited but once each year by the high priest on the Day of Atonement, to make atonement for the sins of the people. This was the most solemn ceremony of the Hebrew worship. King Solomon's temple and citadel. The comprehensiveness of the tabernacle, its hidden grandeur, and its mysterious splendor appealed to David to such an extent that he longed to build with the tabernacle as a model, a permanent temple dedicated to the worship of the true God. David loved the tabernacle as the house of the Lord. He desired to dwell in its courts forever, that he might behold the glory of God, make manifest his eternal presence, and sing his praise. David had the tabernacle ever in mind when he prepared plans and patterns for the permanent temple to be erected upon Mount Moriah, the most sacred spot on earth. He bequeathed the plans to Solomon, who with the tabernacle as a guide erected a temple, the grandeur of which has so impressed the world that men, never tiring in its praise, have placed it foremost in legend, romance, history, and religion. The tabernacle was the pattern which guided the master builders in the construction of King Solomon's temple, as well as the priest in its ritualistic services, completed about 1005 BC, according to the received chronology. Location of the temple. Mount Moriah in the days of Abraham was one of the hills in the vicinity of Salem, the one chosen by Abraham upon which to sacrifice his only son Isaac as a burnt offering unto the Lord. In later years it came under the control of the Amorites, whose principal city, Jebus, occupied a hill westward from Moriah. In the days of King David, who subdued the Jebusites, it became a part of the city named Jerusalem. It is 14.5 miles from Jordan, 15 miles from Salt Sea, and 41 miles from the Mediterranean. The location was not the most desirable one upon which to erect the temple, but was chosen by Solomon because of its sacred association. It was fitting that the great temple to be dedicated to the God of his fathers should be erected upon the very spot where Abraham made manifest that faith in him which was accepted ever after by the children of Israel and the world. Excuse me. On this spot also where Abraham offered Isaac, David made an acceptable offering unto the Lord, and by faith saved Jerusalem from destruction. David no doubt realized the significance of the name given to the mount by Abraham, Jehovah sees, or Jehovah sees. And ever after, the children of Abraham found consolation in the thought, in the mount of Jehovah he will be seen. Solomon in deciding to erect a temple upon this sacred spot fulfilled the wishes of his father King David, and of all in whose breast these sentiments were cherished. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth. Materials for the temple: gold for things to be made of gold, silver for things of silver, brass for things of brass, iron for things of iron, wood for things of wood, onyx stones and stones to be set, glistening stones of diverse colors, and all manner of precious stones, and marble stones in abundance. Nails of gold were used, and nails of brass and iron, chains of gold, ivory from Ophir, hewn stones, stones sawed with saws, great stones, granite, costly stones, marble of various colorings, cedar wood from Mount Lebanon, algum wood from Mount Lebanon, and from Ophir, fir wood, sycamore, shittim wood or akai, olive wood, and palm juniper, balsam and mulberry wood. Leather came from ox skins and chamois, fur from goats and badgers, wool from sheep, fine white twine linen was used, and goats and camels' hair made textile fabrics of purple, crimson, and blue. Varicolored dyes were produced from clay, stones, fish, and vegetation. For the services were furnished oils, spices, incense. Is that myrrh? No, that's not myrrh. Myrtle, fitches, myrrh, sweet cinnamon, calamus, cassia, stat, ancha, galbanum, and frankincense, nature's contributions to the handiwork of man. King David, one of the world's greatest generals and statesmen, founded an imperial dominion, which therefore had not been realized, though it had been promised to Abraham. David became king on the scale of the great sovereigns, demanding and receiving tribute, and forming alliances which enabled him to control the great trade route of which Jerusalem was the center. Yet during the turmoil and struggle attending his rise to supremacy, he never ceased to make preparations for carrying out his one ambition, that of erecting a temple to the worship of God. Behold, in my trouble, I prepared for the house of the Lord 100,000 talents of gold, and 1,000 talents of silver, and 1,000 talents of silver, and of brass without weight, for it is in abundance. Timber also and stone have I prepared, declared David. Again he repeats, I prepared with all my might for the house of my God, the gold for things to be made of gold, and the silver for things of silver, and the brass for things of brass, the iron for things of iron, and wood for things of wood, onyx stones and stones to be set, glistening stones, and of diverse colors, and all manner of precious stones and marble stones in abundance. In addition to the sums he prepared, he donated from his own private purse 3,000 talents of gold, 7,000 talents of silver, all of which he carefully tabulated and dedicated to the Lord in the presence of the fathers and princes of the tribes of Israel, who stood in awed silence before their venerable and God-fearing sovereign. In his final and supreme effort to arouse his hearers to respond with contributions of their own, David shouted, "Who then is willing to consecrate his service this day unto the Lord?" Then the chief of the fathers and princes of the tribes of Israel, and the captains of thousands and of hundreds, with the rulers of the king's work, offered willingly of gold 5,000 talents, and 10,000 drams, and of silver 10,000 talents, and of brass 18,000 talents, and 100,000 talents of iron. And they with whom precious stones were found gave them to the treasure of the house of the Lord. Hiram, king of Tyre, the friend of David, gave Solomon cedar, algum, and fir trees according to all Solomon's need. Also great stones, granite, costly stones, marbles, and huge stones shaped for pillars and squared by stone squares. During the course of the construction of the temple, King Hiram and King Solomon caused periodical trips to be made to Ophir for gold, algum trees, and precious stones to add to the apparently inexhaustible store. King David rejoiced with great joy. The people rejoiced, for they offered willingly with a perfect heart. Hiram, king of Tyre, blessed the Lord God of Israel, that made heaven and earth, who have given to David the king a wise son, endowed with prudence and understanding, that might build an house for the Lord. Value of materials and cost of construction. The enormous wealth used in the construction of the temple, computed in present day values, will enable us more fully to appreciate the stupendous tasks involved in its construction and the superb results attained. Remember everything about the Reed family. If you want to check, you can convert these prices to today. So remember, this book is from like from what, 1920 to 1945. So the prices are obviously going to be off. The 100,000. Hold on, am I on the right page? Okay. The enormous wealth used. Oh yeah, my bad. The 100,000 talents of gold would amount to what is that? Hold on, let me make sure. I don't want to look dumb. Okay, 3,249,324,000 worth of gold. And the thousand talents of silver amounted to 1,811,160,000. Then 3,000 talents of gold from David's private purse would make 97,479,720. 7,000 talents of refined silver equaled 12,678,120. And 5,000 talents and 10,000 drams of gold offered by the people, 162,521,200. 10,000 talents of silver, 18,111,600. The value of the metals carefully tabulated equals the sum of 5,351,274,640. To all this must be added the value of the brass and iron without weight, for it is in abundance. The precious stones, onyx stones, semi-precious stones, great stones, marble, wood, fine linens, fabrics, skins, etc., in the services of thousands of skilled laborers. 3,300 overseers. How many? Okay, it's saying 3,000 skilled laborers, 300 overseers, 80,000 hewers, 70,000 common laborers, and scores of architects, metal workers, woodworkers, engravers, cunning workmen in blue, purple, and scarlet, weavers and decorators in brilliant coloring, refiners of gold, silver, and iron, etc. Without a doubt, King Solomon's temple was the grandest, most costly structure ever erected and dedicated to the worship of the true God. Cooperation of allied nations. King David was 30 years old when the elders of Judah called him to the city of Hebron, gave him their allegiance, and publicly anointed him king. Hold on, let me go to the next page. 13. 7 years later, he received the allegiance of the entire nation. He then began to build. Ow! Hold on, family. Oh, my tea got in my eye. Hold on one second. Okay. He then began to build the empire of his dreams, as promised to Abraham, which was to be the glory of Israel and the world. His first act was to set up the tabernacle in the new city, restored, embellished, and unequaled for permanence and beauty. All his thoughts were for the religious interests of the people. Although he was recognized as a man after God's own heart, he was not perfect. He was a man of great stature, a physical giant, a mighty warrior, and a great general. Every inch a king, a shrewd politician, and sagacious statesman. His outstanding political act was the seizure of the city of Jebus, the key to the control of the great trade route between east and west, which he called Jerusalem. This also gave him possession of the most sacred spot on earth, Mount Moriah. The commanding position of his capital brought the Phoenicians into an alliance, and Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons, and built David an palace. Realizing his strength, David fought and conquered the Philistines, thus making a trade alliance with Egypt possible. Having made these alliances, he was free to turn his victorious armies eastward. There he conquered the Moabites, who became David's servants, and brought gifts. He next conquered the Zobahites, which brought him into battle with the Syrians, whom he utterly routed, and thus gained control of Damascus and part of Syria. The spoils of these wars were great. He received much gold, silver, and brass, besides placing the Syrians under allegiance, so that they too became servants to David, and brought gifts. Having conquered the Syrians, Moabites, Ammonites, Philistines, Amalekites, Rehobites, and Hittites, with his 1,300,000 fighting men, he forced tribute, withstood all enemies, and raised his kingdom to superior strength, opulence, and splendor. Having built an empire unequaled in his time, and established peace with the world, he bequeathed to his son Solomon untold wealth, a commanding army, a multiple allegiance, a vast empire, and sympathetic international accord. Through his energy, shrewdness, skill, unusual fairness, generosity, and devotion, he also left to his heir an affectionate people. Now the days of David drew nigh, that he should die, and he charged Solomon his son this dying charge, a magnificent state paper, and one of the most remarkable readings in the Bible, related principally to the building of the temple, whose erection David had not undertaken because of wars. So David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. Solomon, king of Israel. Solomon was the son of Bathsheba, a direct descendant of Ishmael, whom Hagar bore unto Abraham. David, through the house of Judah, was a direct descendant of Isaac. Thus the two great families founded by Abraham were united in Solomon. He was about 14 years old when he was anointed king of Israel in Gihon, and about 21 at the death of David, so that when he was fully established on the throne, he was familiar with the elaborate designs. Hold on, let me keep going. With the elaborate designs, abundant preparations of his father for the building of the temple. Solomon, having been carefully nurtured by his God-fearing queen mother, had grown into a young man of great mental vigor, having been schooled under the greatest masters of the times, reared in one of the richest and most brilliant courts of the then known world. He was preeminently gifted for the stupendous task before him, and undertook with enthusiasm to carry it on. The secret of Solomon's success is faithfully portrayed in his request. At the time the Lord appeared to him in a dream, and asked what he, the Lord, should give him. Solomon's request was for an understanding heart, that he might discern between good and evil, that he might know how to walk before his people. This submission to God, this desire to have God make manifest through him the righteousness of God, was the first indication of his future greatness. He gathered about him the wonders of nature, both of animal and vegetable life, drew from them the secrets of their existence, and learned that God was made manifest in the heavens above and in the earth beneath, and that God was all and in all. He soon, hold on, let me read that again. I be saying this all the time. Let's read this truth again. Hold on. That was some real truth. This submission to God, this desire to have God make manifest through him the righteousness of God, was the first indication of his future greatness. He gathered about him the wonders of nature, both of animal and vegetable life, drew from them the secrets of their existence, and learned that God was made manifest in the heavens above and in the earth beneath, and that God was all and in all. He soon set about to fulfill the wishes of his father, and to glorify the God of his dream by creating a temple, monumental in design, exceedingly magnificent, and peculiarly fitted to amplify the mysteries of godliness. He took the counsel with his wise men, held conference with his allies, and sought out master builders from all great nations. Thus equipped, he laid the foundation and carried to completion the temple, not only as a place for worship, but as a structure of dazzling architectural glory. Workmen at the temple. Hiram of Tyre, the principal architect and engineer. Hiram of Tyre, the principal architect and engineer, was of mixed race. He was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre. He was skilled to work in gold and in silver, in brass and iron and stone, and in timber, in purple and blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson. Also to grave any manner of graving, and to find out every device which shall be put to him. Cunning, a man richly endowed by nature in wisdom and knowledge. He was preeminently fitted for this almost supernatural task. With him were associated the trained and cunning men of David, who had trained workmen in abundance, hewers and workers of stone and timber. Solomon numbered the strangers that were in the land of Israel, and they were found 150,000 and 3,600. He set 70,000 of them to be bearers of burdens, and 80,000 to be hewers in the mountain. In addition, Solomon raised a levy out of all Israel of 30,000 men, which he sent to Lebanon. Over this great army of workers, something ordered to obtain the greatest efficiency and result. He sent 3,600 overseers, besides the chief of his officers, which were over all the work. Solomon, having married a daughter of Egypt's king, and thus cemented his alliance with the powerful monarch, and having at the same time a workable trade pact with the Phoenicians, drew from these nations skilled workmen to assist his already well-trained and formidable force. In addition, nearly all the neighboring nations as well as those of more distant realms were drawn upon for builders and artisans skilled in wood, metal, and stonework. Architecture of the temple. The assemblage of the world's architecture of genius at Jerusalem, and the amassed store of materials of gold, silver, brass, iron, granite, and marble, together with the precious stones and costly woods and fabrics brought from foreign shores, resulted in a structure distinctive in design, gigantic in proportion, and glorious in embellishments, the like of which Israel and the people of that day had never before seen, and which will never again be equaled, much less excelled. The temple and palace together as a unit consisted of a series of terraces round about Mount Moriah, the highest point of which was crowned by the great porch with the holy and the most holy place. The second highest terrace surrounded the mount was an oblong or rectangle 1,600 foot long and 800 feet wide, having a retaining wall rising from the base of the mount to a height of from 80 to 240 feet, as conditions required for support, for defense, and to produce a uniform raised level about the mount. Within this first enclosure, the architects provided homes for the porters and singers, as well as havens for the worshippers. The upper terrace was 800 feet long and 400 feet wide, surrounded by a retaining wall of great stone. The eastern half of this second enclosed terrace or court was embellished by 3 rows of huge stone or pillars, round about, forming a colonnade and supporting an entablature of cedar beams and costly stones. The covert for the king was located on the north side and was of solid brass. In the western half of this oblong enclosure and on the north side was the court for the women, surrounded by high walls and enclosing a series of chambers suitably arranged. To the south was the court of the priest, containing the chambers for those who were actively engaged in the temple services. In the center of the western half of the great court was the inner court, 400 feet by 200 feet in size, in the form of a rectangle surrounded by a clustered colonnade of 3 rows of pillars supporting a beautiful entablature of cedar beams and costly stones. The only entrance to the inner court was through the great gate on the eastern side. In the center of the eastern half of the inner court stood the great altar of burnt offering. In the southeast corner was the molten sea, and on the north and south sides, 5 on each side, were the lavers. The western square of the inner court contained the house, or holy, and most holy places, surrounded by a series of chambers. The approach to these sacred precincts was through the great porch, rising to a height of 240 feet. These crowning terraces, which supported the temple and King Solomon's palace or citadel, including his house, the house of the forest of Lebanon, the queen's palace, the porch of pillars, and kindred structures, were surrounded for the sake of security by a wall which began at the bottom of the mount. Some of the sides of this wall were reared 280 feet in height before they attained the desired level, and these massive and curious bases together with the superstructure form an impressive prospect which was the marvel of all beholders. King Solomon's palace and citadel. Approaching the temple terrace from the southwest was a road leading through a gate into the great citadel, within the walls of which were the numerous royal buildings. The citadel was on an elevation just below that of the temple, and visitors to the latter had to pass through the former. Here were the king's palace, the house of the forest of Lebanon, the porch of the pillars, the queen's palace, the Tower of David, the palace of the captains of the host, the palace of the high priest, and the judgment seat or throne. Within this same enclosure were to be found the homes of the royal harem and of the immediate official family and attendants. Here also were the royal gardens, in which were to be found a great variety of trees and beautiful shrubbery, and enclosures for wild and domestic animals and birds. The king's palace, the house of the forest of Lebanon, and the other royal buildings were of a size and magnificence such as Israel had never seen before, and were prized because they reflected the high political rank of the nation, as the temple reflected the glory of its religious institutions. The road from the southwest gate ran diagonally northeastward to a central square, which was dominated by the Tower of David. At the south of the square was the court of guards, at the west the queen's palace, and at the east the palace of King Solomon. The banquet hall in the palace. See plate 7. A banquet in King Solomon's palace presented a scene of unparalleled magnificence. Here royal visitors, including the Queen of Sheba, were given sumptuous entertainment. Here also, according to tradition, the humble ironworker assumed the place of honor at a banquet celebrating the completion of the temple, to the consternation of the other guests, but with the approval of the wise king. The palace of the queen. It is stated that he built her an house. By that we understand that he meant it was a palace in style Egyptian, where she could enjoy the music from her native land, isolated as it were from Israel. Above all the women that surrounded Solomon, it is said that the only one that he really loved was his wife, the queen. And so ardent was this love that she was able to draw him from the worship of his God and the God of his fathers. Okay, number 7. What I tell y'all, man, I told you, hey, we got to master this infatuation we have for our women. Our women are great. Yes, care for them. And, if it's your wife, sure, why not? Have an infatuation, love for her. But you don't let that love for your wife or infatuation for her overtake the most high creator's will for your life. You don't let it stop you from doing what the Most High wants you to do, man. That's where we trip as men. We can't be like Adam, all right? We got to be stern. The porch of pillars. North of the queen's palace was the famous porch of pillars. This monumental structure was erected in honor of the princess of Milo and was considered the most beautiful entrance to the citadel of King Solomon. The picture portrays a prince from Milo being received at this great portal. Important visitors such as kings, governors, potentates, and others of natural and international standing, whom the king delighted to honor, were received at this gate. The porch of pillars consisted of 32 pillars, beautifully entabulated, resting upon a foundation or platform 100 feet long and 60 feet wide. The porch of judgment. Directly to the east, across an open space, was the great porch of judgment. The illustration portrays a momentous event. Solomon is on his throne. At his right is his lifelong friend, Zabad, and on his left a scribe. Immediately in front of the scribe is the high priest. On the steps is an orator presenting the complaints of the princes of the tribes of Israel. On the right, in front of the throne, you will notice a prophet of the desert, dressed in a leopard's skin and carrying a shepherd's crook. So important was this meeting that Solomon called out his personal bodyguard. He is being condemned by this prophet as having wandered away from the faith of the true God. He is being condemned by the princes as having squandered money and riotous living, overtaxing the people, causing universal complaint, and threats of secession from the house of Judah. The house of the forest of Lebanon. See plate 10. The house of the forest of Lebanon, northward extending almost to the wall of the temple terrace, was the monumental house of the forest of Lebanon. In the foreground were the elaborate and beautiful sunken gardens. Upon the right and left of this building, enclosed by entablature walls, were the international bazaars and shops. The inner court of the temple. The avenue from the southwest gate of the citadel, having passed the palaces, the porches, and the house of the forest of Lebanon, proceeded again northeastward to an open space before the house of the high priest, where there was a gate leading upward to the forecourt of the temple. This outer court okay, I guess I skipped that. Yeah. So 19. Okay, so let's just start at the treasure room on this one. Yeah, because that's what I wanted. Okay, the treasure room. This room occupied the space above the holy and most holy places, extending the entire length of the house. It was 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 10 cubits high, 120 feet by 40 by 20. Here were stored the many things King David had dedicated to the Lord. Here also were the silver and gold vessels and instruments, and all the dedicated things such as gifts from allied kings, princes, potentates, and other important personages. It was also the royal treasury where Solomon deposited and from whence he dispersed all things of value. The chambers round about the temple. A series of chambers surrounded the house on 3 sides. Oh, my bad, family. Let me pull it back up. A series of chambers surrounded the house on 3 sides. The north, west, and south, all 3 stories high. The uppermost chamber was 5 cubits, 10 feet abroad. The middle one was 6 cubits, 12 feet, and the third or lower chamber was 7 cubits. Access to these chambers was by means of a peculiar and secret winding stairway on the south side of the house, from the lower into the middle, and from thence to the upper chambers. These chambers were all finished in fine wood and overlaid with pure gold, affording quiet and secluded spots for secret communion with God, and for the preparations and proper clothing of the priest, as well as storage room for the vessels and instruments used every day in the ritual services. The holy place. The holy place, or greater house, was a double cube, 40 cubit long, 20 cubits wide, and 20. Oh, by the way, family, just hold on. We gonna get into the meat, into some other stuff. We almost done reading stuff like this, but I thought these are pretty interesting parts to read. But we almost done. We're almost to, I guess you want to say the meat. Of the meat and potatoes, we about to get to the meat. The holy place, or greater house, was a double cube, 40 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 20 cubits high, 80 feet long, 40 feet wide, and 40 feet high, sealed with fire tree, overlaid with fine gold, and settings of palm trees, and chains with engraved cherubim on the walls. The entire house was garnished with precious stones for beauty. The entrance to the house was by a large double door, 2 leaves to the one door and 2 leaves to the other, of a olive wood carved with cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, all overlaid with pure gold. The furniture of the holy place consisted of 10 candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left, together with their lamps and snuffers. Also 10 tables of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left, together with their bowls, basins, spoons, and covers. To these must be added the golden altar of incense and its censer, the table of showbread, and the golden candlestick of the tabernacle, all harmoniously arranged within the walls, ceilings, and floors of gold set with precious stone. The most holy place. The Holy of Holies was a perfect 40-foot cube, 20 cubits broad, 20 cubits long, and 20 cubits high. All the walls round about were carved with figures of cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, all overlaid with pure gold. Even the floor was overlaid with gold, and all was garnished with precious stones for beauty. The 2 doors leading to the most holy place were of olive wood, cunningly carved with cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, and overlaid with pure gold. Each door had 2 leaves, which folded. Over this entrance hung the veil of blue, purple, and crimson of the finest fabric, cunningly wrought with cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. This beautiful tapestry defined the entrance to the oracle. The only piece of furniture in the most holy place was the sacred ark of the covenant of the Lord, containing the testimony. This was placed within the oracle's shadow by the wings of 2 gigantic cherubim of olive wood, overlaid with pure gold. The cherubim were each 10 cubits high, 20 feet, with an outspread of wings of 20 cubits, 40 feet. The temple and early masonry. Alright, family, hold on real quick. Give me like 2 minutes, alright? Take a quick sound break. Alright, family, I'm back. Let's get back to it. The temple and early masonry. History is an afterthought, written only when greatness has already been achieved. There was no Hebrew history before David, who united the tribes and conquered their enemies. Nor was there any Masonic history, as we know it, until the operative stonemasons of England had established their craft by building some of those marvelous monuments to Christian civilization. The Gothic cathedrals. By building some of those marvelous monuments to Christian civilization, the Gothic cathedrals. But there were Masons and there were Hebrews long before there were books about either. In the widely separated beginnings of both Hebrew and Masonic history, we find references to the building of a temple. We have seen that King Solomon's temple was not built in a day, or without the accumulation and expenditure of a vast treasure in materials, craftsmanship, and human organization. We have seen that a generation of intensive preparation, David concentrating the energies of a kingdom on a project he was never to behold, preceded the actual building, and that long ages of venerating this simpler tabernacle in the wilderness came before that. The Masonic fraternity started simply two in the magnificent brotherly structure. The Masonic fraternity started simply two in the magnificent brotherly structure of the best 200 years was many centuries in making. Unlike the temple, the fraternity in its formative years had no powerful king to protect and support it, and its growth was far less spectacular than that of the great monument of Mount Moriah. The temple and eternity. King Solomon's temple was the perfect architectural expression. Oh, my bad, family. King Solomon's temple was the perfect architectural expression of the religious faith of a people. And as such, it has never been equaled in the history of the world, much less excelled. Its actual life was short, but its influence has been incalculable. Built to endure for centuries, only a few years elapsed before it was desecrated and then completely destroyed by invading armies. Yet its fame did not die. The children of Israel, with fervent determination, rebuilt it twice, and twice more was it destroyed. The descendants of its builders were scattered far and wide over the face of the earth, but the traditions of their labor and their unity and their accomplishment have remained to inspire all subsequent ages. And the magnificence of the temple they built is still acknowledged as the epitome of gorgeous architecture. To arrive at recorded Masonic history, we must leave the age of King Solomon and the builders of the temple at Jerusalem far behind, coming up to the British Isles during the Christian Middle Ages. Medieval history and legend. The legends of Masonry, am I on the right page? Okay, yeah. The legends of Masonry are very old, and they tell of times far older than themselves. The earliest legendary Masonic writing which has survived in manuscript is a little book consisting of 33 leaves of parchment, written in England, probably before 1390 AD. Here begin the constitutions of the art of geometry according to Euclid, are the opening lines in Latin. Then the manuscript proceeds in Old English, doggerel, to tell how that worthy clerk, Euclid, taught the useful art of geometry to unemployed sons of the Egyptian nobility. How the knowledge which he taught spread to France and England, and how he admonished his pupils in 15 articles and 15 points to be good men and worthy exponents of the art of geometry. By geometry he meant masonry. This medieval stonemasons organization, forerunner of modern Freemasonry, was already of respectable age when the book of Euclid's Constitutions was written. It was old enough so that its living members saw nothing ridiculous in tracing their history back to Lamech, the gardens of Adam, and through him to Pythagoras of Greece, and Hiram, king of Tyre, and King Charles Martel of France, and Athelstan, king of England. Even though these celebrities were separated from each other by centuries rather than by years, it was old enough so that not only stonemasons but gentlemen and dignitaries of the church were interested in its legends and impressed with its supposed continuity since biblical times. The next oldest Masonic manuscript, written only a few years later, tells substantially the same story in a somewhat different manner, and also includes a reference to King Solomon's temple. Solomon is represented as having confirmed Euclid's articles and points for the government of Masons. Solomon is represented as having confirmed Euclid's articles and points for the government of Masons. These two Masonic manuscripts are the oldest of a long series known to have been written over a period of more than 300 years, between the end of the 14th century and the beginning of the 18th century. They are sometimes called the Old Charges of Masonry, and sometimes the manuscript constitutions of the craft. Because of Masonry, and sometimes the manuscript constitutions of the craft, because they link modern Freemasonry with an immemorial past. They are also called the title deeds of the fraternity. In all of them is an account of the Temple of Solomon, or Templum Dei, or Temple of Jerusalem, or Templum Domini, and an attempt at the establishment of kinship between the builders of this temple and the English stonemasons for whom the manuscripts are written. King Solomon and Hiram, king of Tyre, are always in the story, and usually a third builder who is represented as Anan, a son of Hiram. Thus, the dominant theme of the builder's art appears in the very earliest history of the craft. The Bible and early Masonry. In the oldest Masonic legends, the building of King Solomon's temple was not the only or even the principal event commemorated, nor is the Bible mentioned in these early times as the central light of the lodge, but the Masonic organizations in which these legends were cherished, like Masonic lodges, today were religious bodies. Masons working on the abbey at Hirasu or Hirsau in southern Germany, 300 years before our first manuscripts were written in England, were actually organized as lay brothers under the Benedictine rule. Almost as early, there were Cistercian lay brothers working on a church in the Yorkshire. Their motto was Ora et Labor, pray and work. Practically every one of the old manuscripts containing Masonic legends begins with an invocation to deity. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, Amen. Practically everyone closes with an oath or a reference to an oath. So help you God, and by the contents of this book, and often with the further admonition, it is a great peril for a man to forswear himself upon a book. In many manuscripts, an actual ceremony is described, practically always in Latin. One of the eldest taking the book shall hold it forth, that he or they which are to be made masons may impose and lay their right hand upon it, and the charge shall be read. I wonder if that's where they get that in court, when you place your right hand on the Bible. If that comes from the Masons. The church and the Bible. The repeated references to the book in these old manuscripts almost certainly mean the Bible. And as far as recognition of the Bible by early Masons is concerned, this is quite as much as could be expected in an age before printing had been invented, when every book in the world had to be laboriously copied by hand, and when the Bible, moreover, was written only in Latin. Few people could read the Bible, and fewer still could own a copy. It was a book to be venerated, but not read. The religious instruction and inspiration which the Bible supplies nowadays was then derived from three sources. 1. Ecclesiastical symbolism and ceremony. 2. Mystery plays or biblical entertainment. And 3. Architecture. Masons may have participated in the second. They were of primary importance to the third. Masons may have participated in the second. They were of primary importance in the third. Okay. When people could not read books, the lessons of religion had to be taught in other ways. They were taught by sermons of the priest and by the ritual of the sacraments. They were also taught dramatically through mystery plays, performed often by the craft guilds. The Masons may possibly have used a mystery play whose story survives in the third degree. Above all, the lessons of religion were taught during the Middle Ages through architecture and sculpture. Every village church was a message from God, and the cathedral was an entire Bible. The general plan of the church, the choir, the chapels, the carved figures of saints, the painted windows, all told the story of God's fatherhood as clearly to the people of that day as our Bible tells it to us. The Masons' part in telling this story was a most important one, and this, as well as other circumstances, set the Masons apart from other crafts. This medieval period, which saw such a growth of Masonry, was essentially an age of symbolism. Everything in architecture, in ceremonial, in heraldry, in religion had its symbolic meaning. Interpretation of the symbolism was left almost entirely to one division of the community, the church, and to a few thinking people. It must have seemed that as time went on, the symbols grew in importance and the meaning faded. The letter became dominant and the word was lost. Toward the end of the medieval period, at just about the time the Masonic old charters were being written, the first complete English translation of the Bible was compiled by William Wycliffe. Here was the word itself, and those who had an opportunity to read it could go beyond the symbolism of architecture and heraldry and ceremonial to the religious reality on which it was based. A new authority was challenging the supremacy of the church. That new authority was the Bible. The progress of the challenge was called the Reformation. Real quick, fam, you see how blessed we are to have the Bible today, to be able to read it, and a lot of us take advantage of it, and we don't realize how much this book has been used to control our lives, which is why it's important for you to be able to read it yourself and get understanding, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little for yourself. The inventions of printing made possible the rapid dissemination of the new religious literature, especially the Bible. The church ceased to be unquestioned interpreter. The church ceased to be the unquestioned interpreter of religious truth. Its place was gradually taken in Protestant countries by the Bible. The importance of religious architecture as a teacher of the people decreased rapidly, and with it diminished the importance of the operative stonemason's craft. Operative to speculative. Membership in medieval craft guilds, including whatever type of organization the Mason had at that time, was not strictly confined to the workers. Of one particular craft. Other workers and sometimes gentlemen and noblemen occasionally sought and gained admission. This must have been especially true in the Masons' organization. The writer of the earliest Masonic manuscript was almost certainly a priest, and no doubt many churchmen held a kind of Masonic membership. Later, after church building had practically ceased and the nature of the Masonic organization changed with the new conditions, members from outside the craft continued to be accepted. These accepted members, or speculative Masons, as they were later called, were no doubt few in number at the time of the Reformation. Their presence, however, and the legendary background which attracted them, must have encouraged the survival of a craft whose operative reasons for existence was rapidly disappearing. Even with the economic ruin which the Reformation brought to the stonemasons industry, it was a long time before the accepted Masons reached the majority and took possession of the organization. The Bible and the Temple. The Bible is many centuries old, but as a literal force in the life of Western Christianity, it began to grow only with the invention of printing and the success of the Reformation. Its growth as the great lights in Masonic lodges paralleled its growth in the churches and in the homes of pious men. Masons, like other people, took up the reading of the Bible as soon as it was translated out of the Latin and printed in sufficient quantities to bring it within reach. Always present in the lodge for the swearing of candidates, it became increasingly important in the minds and lives of its readers. Masons became aware of the biblical source of many of their legends, and perhaps became inclined to attribute biblical significance to legends which originally had none. At any rate, they could see that the fundamental precepts of Masonic morality were actually to be found in the volume of sacred law. They saw also that King Solomon's temple occupied a prominent place in divine, as it did in Masonic history. The growth of popular interest in the temple paralleled very closely the growth of Bible reading. Perhaps Masonic interest also increased from a more or less incidental notice of the temple to a final preoccupation with it as a symbol of spiritual man. The Bible hardly came into its own as a widely read book until after the publication of the King James Version in 1611. The temple began to appear prominently in religious literature at about the same time. Hugh Broughton, who died in 1612, left some writings on the temple, as did John Selden, 1584 to 1654. Nicholas Fuller referred to it in a book published as Heidelberg in 1612 and in Oxford in 1616. Christopher Cartwright, 1602 to 1658, had a good deal to say about the temple in his writings. On the Talmud, Samuel Lee in 1969, Samuel Lee in 1659 published a very suggestive work, Orbis Miraculum, or the Temple of Solomon, portrayed by Scripture Light. Hold on, family. Alright. Models of the temple. Late in the 17th century, there were several attempts to create models of King Solomon's temple. Some of them attracted wide notice in England. At just the time the operative Masonic craft was being gradually transformed into what we know as speculative Freemasonry. Gottfried Hensel, rector of Hirschberg in Germany, made a model. Rabbi Jacob Yehuda Leon was displaying one in England in 1675. A little later, Gerhard Schultz was building his in Hamburg. This one was still being shown in London in 1725, 8 years after the first Grand Lodge was organized. Solomon's Temple spiritualized. Even before the Apostle Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, spoke of man as the temple of God, the idea of a spiritual temple in the human soul has had religious currency. It was natural that Solomon's great building should come to be regarded as the ideal prototype of such a temple. It was natural also that this idea should be an integral part of the first essay, in which the word Freemason ever appeared in print. In the Pilgrimage of Perfection by William Bode, 1526, the following appeared: "We were but as apprentices, bound to learn the craft of the exercise of virtues, and now this day we shall be masters of the craft." Example: the Freemason setteth his apprentice first a long time to learn to hew stones, and when he can do that perfectly, he admitteth him to be a Freemason, and chooseth him as a cunning man to be a master of the craft, and maketh him a setter or orderer of the same stone. And so to build to Almighty God, a glorious and pleasant temple in our souls, we as the workmen, and he as the principal author and master of the work, now in diverse degrees, according to their exercise and grace, every person buildeth in his soul a temple to God, some more, some less, as the clearness of their conscience requireth. The next section of the book drew lessons from the tabernacle and temple. Antiquarians and Freemasons. Many non-operative members of Masonic lodges, the speculative or accepted Freemasons, I'm guessing, because I'm not sitting here and lie, I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing speculative or accepted Freemasons are Freemasons that aren't actually Masons. The first Freemasons are actually stonemasons. They worked on stones, they were architects, builders, right? But I'm guessing this is talking about ones who weren't actually architects. So I guess a speculative Freemason is not an actual stonemason, only a spiritual stonemason. Many non-operative members of Masonic, I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. Many non-operative members of Masonic lodges, the speculative or accepted Freemasons, must have been interested in the temple, as well as in the cathedrals, now old, which the operative Masons had built. In the century following the Reformation, the craft attracted philosophers, scientists, and antiquaries, as well as gentlemen and soldiers. Elias Ashmole and Randall Home were two distinguished examples, and there is no doubt that several of the original members of the Royal Society were Masons. To these men, if not to the operative Masons generally, the place of King Solomon's temple in Masonic legend and symbolism must have become increasingly important. They were interested in the temple as Solomon actually constructed it, and they were almost certainly interested in it also as a symbol of man's struggle for perfection. Francis Bacon, who may or may not have had direct connection with then existing Masonic organizations, wrote a few years before 16. Hey family, if you watch my teaching about I called it Atlantis or Africa, in the second video we read a book from the 1600s from Mr. Sir Francis Bacon. Who would have thought he was a Freemason? I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting. Hey, see, look, the dots connecting. Okay, so if you watch my Atlantis to Africa video, you know what I'm talking about. We read 3 pages from a book. I think it was called the Antediluvian. No, I don't know if it was called I don't think it was called Atlantis Antediluvian Era. It was one of those books that we read. But anyway, go to the lesson, and I've actually got the PDF to the book I'm talking about in the comment section of that teaching. So, hey, go check it out. So, hold on. Francis Bacon, who may or may not have had direct connection with then existing Masonic organizations, wrote a few years before 1626. Oh yeah, he did. A fable called the New Atlantis. Oh snap! The New Atlantis. Okay, my bad, family. Hey, look at that! I promise you, I didn't even see that. I saw Francis Bacon, and the first thing that popped into my mind is the reading. Hey, go back to my Atlantis. Hey, see? Look at the crater putting dots together. I know what I'm talking about, family. Look, I don't know how deep they gonna go in it, but it's just interesting that it mentioned that, and I just did that teaching. But anyway, a fable called the New Atlantis, an important feature of which was a marvelous society known as Solomon's House. This had nothing directly to do with King Solomon's temple, but it showed the... Hold on. The page is stuck together here. But it showed the... position of learned men of the 17th century to associate any organized search for wisdom and truth with the symbolism of the temple which Solomon built in Jerusalem. You know what I'm thinking, family? Just real quick, just to kind of thought process in my mind, is that as this book starts talking about how at some point it started accepting speculative Masons, I kind of feel like they found something. And remember how, if you watch the lesson that I made on, Atlantis or Africa, and we were reading the Emerald Tablets, and we were talking about the pyramids, maybe they found something about Atlantis, or maybe they found something in the pyramids, and that's when people started coming in to this mystery. Or when they started getting Bibles printed, they were able to study for themselves and start going on expeditions, and they started finding information. And sometimes, honestly, I think this word, the craft, maybe at first it meant the craft of actual masonry, but now it means the craft of a different type of craft, a spiritual type of craft, right? So I'm just saying, just kind of getting these vibes as I'm reading, is especially as talking about royalty now joining the Masons and all these rich people, all these certain individuals. So who knows, family? They must have found something. They were sharing these secrets with each other, and so that's why it was no longer just actual Masons joining, but it was rich people and nobles and people of that stature, because they was out there, figuring some stuff out that they don't tell the rest of us. But anyway, let's get back to the reading, family. Page 26. Okay. Grand Lodge Masonry. Wait, did I remember? Wait, 17th century associate any organized research for wisdom and truth with the symbolism of the temple which Solomon built in Jerusalem. Grand Lodge Masonry. The exact position of the temple and the Bible in operative and early speculative masonry is still in question. Enough has been shown to indicate that both must have been of considerable importance. It is hold on, let me read that again for myself. Grand Lodge Masonry. The exact position of the temple and the Bible in operative and early speculative masonry is still in question. Enough has been shown to indicate that both must have been of considerable importance. It is. Hold on, I gotta read that one more time, family, because it's not sticking in my mind right now. The exact position of the temple and the Bible in operative and early speculative masonry is still in question. Enough has been shown to indicate that both must have been of considerable importance. It is especially evident that King Solomon's temple, since it was attracting so much attention in the world at large and among the class of men who became speculative masons, must in the 17th century have been one of the outstanding legends of the craft. Early in the 18th century, 4 old lodges in London met together to form the first Grand Lodge, and Freemasonry was well on its way toward becoming the beautifully organized fraternity which we know today. Probably as early as 1720 or 1730, George Payne, John T. Desagillers, and their associates had developed a ritual of 3 degrees, with the legend of King Solomon's temple holding the central position. This legend, of which there were possible suggestions in the earliest manuscripts, had grown to be one of the dominant themes in Masonry concerning God and religion. Man, what was that word I was thinking of? With shapes, geometry. The craft of geometry. It's almost making me think of what's that show? With the guy, what's that Nickelodeon show? With the kid and you got the fire people, the earth people, the water people, and they do the different hand signals. What's it? Avatar. That's what I'm thinking of too now when I'm thinking about the geometry. I don't know, that just came to mind as reading. Concerning God and religion. Probably we shall never know just how different or how similar Grand Lodge Masonry may be to the operative and speculative masonry that came before it. Did I change it? Okay. But of one important change there is no doubt. The operative masonry of the Middle Ages and also the increasingly speculative craft of the 17th century were Christian and Trinitarian. In contrast The first charge in the Grand Lodge Book of Constitution, 1723, was as follows. A Mason is obliged by his tenure to obey the moral law, and if he rightly understands the art, he will never be stupid. He will never be a stupid atheist, nor an religious libertine. But though in ancient times Masons were charged in every country to be of the religion of that country or nation, whatever it was, yet 'tis now thought more expedient only to oblige them to that religion in which all men agree, leaving their particular opinions to themselves. That is to be good men and true. That is, hold on. My bad, family. Leaving their particular opinions to themselves. That is to be good men and true, or men of honor and honesty, by whatever denomination or persuasion they may be distinguished, whereby Masonry becomes the center of union, and the man of conciliating true friendship among persons that must else have remained at a perpetual distance. Still deeply religious, Masonry had become universal. Important as the Bible undoubtedly was in early speculative Masonry, its dominant position became more rather than less pronounced after the organization of Grand Lodges in the 18th century. Although this first charge concerning God and religion in the Grand Lodge Book of Constitutions does not specifically mention the Bible, the implication is that its immorally statute is that its immemorial statutes as an essential part of the lodge was well understood and was to remain unchanged. A little later, when printed references to Masonry became more plentiful, the Bible appeared prominently in them. A little later, when printed references to Masonry became more plentiful, the Bible appeared prominently in them. As early as 1730, the Bible, square, and compasses were mentioned in London as furniture of the lodges. According to the Boston Evening Post, June 20th, 1743, reporting an incident in Vienna, a lodge there had a Bible on the table open at the first chapter of Genesis. In Helston, Cornwall, April 21st, 1752, a brother Isaac Head delivered a charge. Let our whole deportment testify for us that we have formed our lives upon the perfect model of God's revealed will, exhibited to us in the Holy Bible, that this book is the basis of all our craft, and that it is by this piece of divine furniture, so essential to our society, we are taught wisdom to contrive in all our doings. The Bible is now so closely identified with the lodge that for Christian countries it is one of the very few undisputed landmarks of Freemasonry. Another is belief in God. These two essential beliefs in a supreme being and reverence for his word established beyond question the character of the fraternity as a religious institution. The great light in Masonry. The regular work in any grand jurisdiction offers ample evidence of the importance of the two dominant themes, the Bible and King Solomon's Temple. In present-day Freemasonry, The regular work in any grand jurisdiction offers ample evidence of the importance of the two dominant themes, the Bible and King Solomon's Temple. In present-day Freemasonry, their intimate relationship is best illustrated by the selected Masonic scriptural reference, which follow. In each case, the citation includes the entire logical context, but only the most salient passages are quoted. The references are classified under appropriate headings, which are thought to be sufficiently explanatory without being in violation of the Masonic obligation of secrecy. The topics are arranged for convenience of reference in the order of the ritual. The page numbers of the present edition of the Bible are added in parentheses after the citation, thus 100. Opening and closing the lodge. Ceremony. According to the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall ye keep it. And that's Numbers chapter 9. Hold on, let me just real quick, family, because I want to see, because I'm guessing the ceremonies are within, like, you kind of have a clue of the ceremonies they're doing from the Bible verse. Hold on, we're not going to do this for everyone. We still going through, family, but I just want to check something. Numbers, go to Numbers chapter 9, verse 3. Hold on. Numbers chapter 9. I'm going to the book of Numbers, chapter 9. Oh, that's Leviticus. Okay. Book of Numbers, chapter 9. Where am I? Okay. Hold on. Book of Numbers, chapter 9, verse 3. At twilight on the appointed day in early spring, be sure to follow all my laws and regulations concerning this celebration. It's talking about the second Passover. Remember I spoke the other night, family, about, look, you could do what you want, but, you have free will to do what you want. But those who truly, really seeking favor of the Most High, you really following the Most High's holy days. You're not doing any other, you're not following any other holidays of man. And look, if you want to do Christmas and do it, look, that's on you. You could do it. I'm not telling nobody not to do that. But I'm saying, at least in my experience, when you really on this path, you make no concessions for anything but the word and the truth of the word. And you want to do anything you can to please the Most High. And it's funny that in this first ceremony, Numbers chapter 9, verse 3, is talking about the Passover, which, if you watch my other videos, the world marks their people and the Most High Creator marks the Most High Creator's people. And how does the Most High mark the Most High's people? It's a spiritual mark. It's your mind, how you carry yourself, and how you show that you are a follower and marked by the Most High is you follow the ways of the Most High, aka the Passover. You make a choice and an effort to acknowledge these days, right? But anyway, let's keep going. I was just curious. Okay, so the tiller. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Then, according to the rites of it, according of all ceremonies thereof shall you keep. Okay. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn to his hand. For a day in thy court is better than 1,000. I had rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. So I'm guessing in this part of the ceremony there's a sword, almost like a knighting or something like that. Something to do with a sword. All right, what's the next page we going? We going straight. Okay, it's 28. Consecration. For Moses has said, consecrate yourself today to the Lord, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. And that is Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus. Okay, he talking about Passover again. Okay, but let's keep going. The visitor. And if a stranger sojourns with thee in your land, ye shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwells with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. The first master craftsman, and Zillah, she also bare Tubal Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. Confusion in the craft. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Up, sanctify the people, and say, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow. For thus saith the Lord God of Israel, there is an accursed thing in the midst of thee, O Israel. And when the king came in to see the guest, he saw there a man which had not a wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless, self-support. But if any provide not for his own, especially for those of his own house, he have denied the faith, and is worse than an infidel. Widows and orphans. A father of the fatherless and a judge of the widows is God in his holy habitation. Learn to do well, seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. Defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy. Page 29. Glory and beauty of the day. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and might unto night, and night unto night showeth knowledge. Family, I'm not, some of these pages I'm probably looking at them, they're probably just going to be verses from the Bible. So I'm probably going to skip these and go to just certain parts in the back. And if you want me to come back and maybe we can do like a little lesson or something where we try to maybe break down spiritually what they're talking about or figure out the ceremony, you know, we can do that. So, you know, let me know in the messages. You know, maybe we'll do something like that. But I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna kind of skim through these, because like I said, these are just scriptures that we just, you know, not that they don't mean nothing, but I mean, if you read them before, you read them, and you know, anyway. The daily wage. At his day thou shalt give him his hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it. And Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat for food to his household, and 20 measures of pure oil. Thus gave Solomon to Hiram year by year. The lodge. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Before the throne. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another, and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Dew of Hermon. As the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. Labor and refreshment. To whom he said, This is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest, and this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. The preparation room. Only he shall not go into the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he have a blemish, that he profane not my sanctuaries. For I, the Lord, do sanctify them. Ye shall offer at your own will a male without blemish of the beeves, of the sheep or the goats. But whatsoever hath a blemish, that shall ye not offer. for it shall not be acceptable for you. Okay, what's in it? Okay, page 30. The fatherhood of God, clothing. And Moses brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. And he put upon him the coat and girded him with the girdle. Cable toe. I drew them with cords of a man, with bands of love. Races of men. Like I said, I'm going to skip something, family. But Peter said, not so, Lord, for I've never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, what God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. Okay, once again, multitude. I was talking about the other day, level of equality. Yeah, let's go to the next page. Childlike attitude. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child shall in no wise enter therein. And they brought young children to him, that he should touch them, and said unto them, suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not. For if such is the kingdom of God, verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. And he took them up in his arms, put his hands upon them, and blessed them. Initiation, first degree, first section, from darkness to light. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. They be blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. The aid of deity. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And gave unto Solomon my son, a perfect heart, to keep thy commandments, thy testimonies, and thy statutes, and to do all these things, and to build the palace, for the which I have made provision. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart, to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? After this manner therefore pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believe ye shall receive. Let's go to the next. 32. Anything trusting God, the altar. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. And he said, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, when thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next page. The obligation. And I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth. If a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord by God, thou shalt not slack to pay it, for the Lord thy God will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. And he that sweareth in the earth shall swear by God, by the God of truth. For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he sware by himself. And ye shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. Light. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and night. The Master. And God made two great lights, the greatest light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for a light by night. The sun, talking about the Messiah. The God of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. And he shall be as the light of the morning, when the sun riseth, even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after rain. The light of life. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. All right, what page? 34. The pearly gates. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. The clouds of the valley, a great white throne. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it. The faithful servant. His Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Untempered mortar, the poor. The house not made with hands. Let's read the poor for a second. Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The Lord will deliver him in time of trouble. It is not this the fast that I have chosen. It is not to deal thy bread to the hungry. When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. 35. The northeast corner. And thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, this is the way, walk ye in it, when ye turn to the right hand, and when ye turn to the left. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. First degree, second section. First preparation. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. The preparation of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. Okay, let's go to the next page. Now this was the manner in former times of Israel concerning redeeming, and concerning changing. For to conform all things, a man plucked off his shoe, and gave it to his neighbor, and this was testimony in Israel. The atheist. The fool have said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. The cornerstone. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion for a fountain, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. Emblem of innocence. The lambs are for thy clothing. He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs with his arm, and carry them in his bosom, and shall gently lead those that are with young. Okay. So I guess I skipped. Hold on, there's one thing I saw. Obviously I didn't make, but I want to read that real quick. I didn't. It said, oh, I thought I took a picture of this. Oh, well. I want to read the pillar of wisdom and one that says Jacob's ladder. The pillar of wisdom. Wisdom hath builded her house. She hath hewn out her 7 pillars. Doth not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? By me kings reign, princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. No mention shall be made of coral or of pearls, for the price of wisdom is above rubies. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally, and unbraideth not, and it shall be given him. Jacob's ladder. And Jacob went out from Beersheba, and went toward Haran. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and ascending on it. Okay, let's move on to this. I know I took some other pictures, but I guess not. Hold on. Maybe it's just kind of messed up. I might have it. Okay. I guess never mind. There was the third degree, third section, historical lecture. Now Hiram, hold on, let me read some. Hold on. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David in timber of cedar with masons and carpenters to build him a house. Okay, yeah. Well. Okay, third degree symbolism. Okay, let me just skip forward. Oh yeah, family, I'm skipping some pages, man. Hold on, I know I had hold on. I know I had taken pictures of these. I think I did. If not, I'm gonna read. I guess either it's not showing up because sometimes whatever. I'm gonna just read this page. I'm just read this next page to you, family. I apologize. It should be here on the screen, but apparently I didn't. Either I didn't take a picture of it, or it's just not showing for some reason. Hold on real quick, family. Cause I know at least I think I did. I thought I guess I didn't. Maybe I didn't. I thought I took a man. I apologize, family. I thought I took a picture. Oh well, look. I'm about to read page 52 and 53. I'll take a picture of it and post it in the community section if you want to go back and read it yourself when this video posts tomorrow. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and just read it now. I'm gonna let you look at my beautiful face while I read it. Since okay, but yeah, this is what I'm about to read right here. Page 52, 53, and I believe 54. I don't know if you can really tell what it says, but the words of a great Masonic divine. Here we go. The words of a great Masonic divine, R.W. and Reverend Joseph Fort Newton, the Bible of Masonry. Time is a river, and books are boats. Many volumes start down that stream, only to be wrecked and lost beyond recall in its sands. Only a very few endure the testing of time, and live to bless the ages following. We pay homage to the greatest of all books, the one enduring book, which has traveled down to us from the far past, freighted with the richest treasure that ever any book has brought to humanity. What a sight it is to see men gathered about an open Bible. How typical of the spirit and genius of Masonry, its great and simple faith, and its benign ministry to mankind. No Mason needs to be told what a place of honor the Bible has in Masonry. One of the great lights in the order, it lies open upon the altar at the center of the lodge. Upon it, every Mason takes solemn vows of love, of loyalty, of chastity, of charity, pledging himself to our tenets of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Think what it means for a young man to make such a covenant of consecration in the morning of life, taking that wise old book as his guide, teacher, and friend. Then, as he moves toward from one degree to another, the imagery of the Bible becomes familiar and eloquent, and its mellow, haunting music sings its way into his heart. And yet, like everything else in Masonry, the Bible, so rich in symbolism, is itself a symbol that is a part taken for the whole. It is a sovereign symbol of the book of faith, the will of God as man has learned it in the midst of the years, that perpetual revelation of himself which God is making mankind in every land and every age. Thus, by the very honor which Masonry pays to the Bible, it teaches us to revere every book of faith in which men find help for today and hope for the morrow, joining hands with the man of Islam as he takes oath on the Quran, and with the Hindu as he makes covenant with God upon the book that he loves best. For Masonry knows what so many forget, that religions are many, but religion is one. Perhaps we may say one thing, but that one thing includes everything: the life of God and the soul of man, and the duty and hope of man which proceeded from his essential character. Therefore, it invites to its altar men of all faiths, knowing that if they use different names for the nameless one of 100 names, they are yet praying to the one God and Father of all, knowing also that while they read different volumes, they are in fact reading the same vast book of the faith of man, as revealed in the struggle and sorrow of the race in its quest of God. So that, great and noble as the Bible is, Masonry sees it as a symbol of that eternal book of the will of God, which Lowell described when he wrote his memorable lines. Family, this sound a lot like what we be talking about. Hey, all the religions have the truth in it. You can't just focus on one. Slowly the Bible of race is writ, and not on paper, leaves nor leaves of stone. Each age, each kindred adds a verse to it, text of despair or hope, of joy or moan, while swings the sea, while mist the mountain shroud, while thunders surge, burst on cliffs of cloud, still as the prophet's feet the nations sit. None the less, much as we honor every book of faith in which any man has found courage to lift his hand above the night and cover him and lay hold of its mighty hand of God, with us the Bible is supreme. What Homer was to the Greeks, what the Quran is to the Arabs, that and much more, the grand old Bible is to us. It is the mother in our literary family. And if some of its children have grown up and become wise in their own conceit, they yet rejoice to gather about its knee and pay tribute. Not only was the Bible the loom on which our language was woven, but it is a pervasive, refining, redeeming force bequeathed to us with whatsoever else that is good and true. In the very fiber of our being, not for a day do we regard the Bible simply as a literary classic, apart from what it means to the faiths and hopes and prayers of men, and its inweaving into the intellectual and spiritual life of our race. There was a time when the Bible formed almost the only literature of England, and today, if it were taken away, that literature would be torn to tatters and shreds. Truly did Macaulay say that, if everything else in our language should perish, the Bible would alone suffice to show the whole range and power and beauty of our speech. From it Milton learned his majesty of song, and Ruskin his magic of prose. Carlyle had in his very blood, almost without knowing it, the rhapsody and passion of the prophets. Their sense of the infinite, of the littleness of man, of the sarcasm of providence, as burns before him, had learned from the same fireside book the indestructibleness of honor, and the human pity of God, which throbbed in his lyrics of love and liberty. Thus, from Shakespeare to Tennyson, the Bible sings in our poetry chants, in our music echoes, in our eloquence, and in our tragedy flashes forever its truth of terribleness of sin, the tenderness of God, and the inextinguishable hope of man. My brethren, here is a book whose scene in the sky, and the dirt, and all that lies between, a book that has in it the arch of the heavens, the curve of the earth, the ebb and flow of the sea, sunrise and sunset, the peaks of mountains, and the glint of sunlight on flowing waters, the shadow of forests on the hills, the song of birds and the color of flowers. But its two great characters are God and the soul, and the story of their eternal life together is its one everlasting romance. It is the most human of books, telling the old forgotten secrets of the heart, its bitter pessimism, and its death-defying hope, its pain, its passion, its sin, its sob of grief, and its shout of joy, telling all without malice, in its grand style, which can do no wrong, while echoing the sweet tone pathos of the pity and mercy of God. No other book is so honest with us, so mercilessly merciful, so austere yet so tender, piercing the heart yet healing the deep wounds of sin and sorrow. Take this great and simple book, white with age yet new with the dew of each new morning. Test it by the sorrowful and victorious experience of centuries, rich in memories, and wet with the tears of multitudes who walked this way before us. Lay it to heart, love it, and read it. Lay it to heart, love it, read it, and learn what life is, what it means to be a man. Learn that God hath made us for himself, and unquiet are our hearts till they rest in him. Make it your friend and teacher, and you will know what Sir Walter Scott meant when he, as he lay dying, he asked Lockhart to read to him. From what book? Asked Lockhart. And Scott replied, there is but one book. Hey, and I ended reading that at 222. That's a sign. Okay, we on track, family. Let's go ahead and go. Hey, these numbers, family. These numbers, these algorithms, right? This sacred geometry. 222, that's a message. We doing the right thing reading this right now. And it's 8:55. Okay, bet. So that's 222 at 8:55. That's a message. Okay. All right, family. Let's go ahead and hop back in. Let's hop back in to the pages that I actually did take a picture of. Like I said, family, I'm going to take a picture of these pages that apparently I forgot. I don't think I forgot. I think maybe the computer acts stupid sometimes. It just didn't show it for some reason. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, we're gonna hop back in, family. We almost done though. I'm hungry, man. I ain't ate all day. I'm about to eat though when we're done with this though. Anyway, so 160 questions, and we're not about to read all 100. I'm gonna tell you that right now. 160 questions and answers, compiled from the works of Albert G. Mackey and many other eminent Masonic authorities, pertaining to the symbolism of Masonry and its connection with the Bible. The following questions and answers are intended to convey to the average Mason the information every Mason desires, without taking the time for research. It is the ultimate desire of Masons to be well informed, not only on the exact phraseology of the ritual, but also its esoteric meaning. It is for the benefit of these members of the craft seeking more light that this work be especially arranged. right. So Abith. Why was Hiram the builder an ancient grand master called Abith? A Hebrew word signifying his father. It is often used in the scripture as a title of honor. It was given to Hiram, the tyrant builder, probably because of his distinguished skill. The scriptures refer to him as the widow's son. 1 Kings 3:33. Hey, it was 2:22, now it's 3:33. There we go. Akai. What is Akai known as in Masonry? In speculative Masonry, acacia, is it Akai or acacia? I think it's Akai. Is a symbol of immortality of the soul. It was used in making the sacred furniture of the tabernacle. Its biblical name is shittim wood. Yeah, it's Akai. Adoniram. Adoniram. What was the duty of Adoniram at the building of the temple? Chief receiver of tribute under David and Solomon. He was appointed by Solomon to superintend the contribution towards building the temple, as well as the levy of 30,000 Israelites to work by monthly courses in the forest of Lebanon. All-seeing eye. What is the source of this symbol and its meaning? An important symbol borrowed by the Freemasons from the nations of antiquity. Among the Egyptian, Osiris, their chief deity, was symbolized by an open eye. The eye of Jehovah the eyes of Jehovah are in every place, beholding and watching the evil and the good. It is a symbol of the omnipresent deity. Almond tree shall flourish. Almond tree shall flourish. Of what is the almond tree a symbol? The almond tree, when in full bloom, is covered with white blossoms and is a symbol of man when the hairs of his head turn gray. How do Masons compute the Masonic year? Between the creation of the world, according to the sacred chronology, and the advent of Christ, 4,000 years intervene. Thus, AL 1935 added to 4,000 gives the Masonic year 5,935. The Masonic era commences with the creation of the world. Anno Mundi, or Masonically expressed Anno Luci, a year of light or year of the Lodge Genesis. How do Royal Arch Masons compute their years? The Royal Arch Masons begin their computation with the year which Zerubbabel began to build the second temple, which was 530 years before Christ, so that 530 plus 1935 equals 2,465, the Masonic year of the Royal Arch. Altar. Of what importance is the altar to the lodge? The altar is undoubtedly the most important piece of furniture in the lodge. In all religions of antiquity, it was the usage of the priests and the people to pass around the altar in the course of the sun, that is to say, from east by way of the south to the west, singing hymns of praise to deity as part of their worship, or hymn of praise consisting of psalms. Amen. What is the significance of the word Amen? The response to every Masonic prayer is so mote it be, meaning Amen collectively. The word in Hebrew signifies verily, truly, certainly, and is where one person confirms the word of another and adds his wish for the success of another. It is a response to prayer. The Talmudists have many superstitions in respect to this word. Thus in one treatise it is said that whosoever pronounces it with fixed attention and devotion, to him the gates of paradise will be opened. And again, whosoever enunciates the word rapidly, his days shall pass rapidly away. And whosoever dwells upon it distinctly and slowly, his life shall be prolonged. Amos. What is the usage of opening the Bible at a proper place? In this country, most of the lodges have adopted the usage of opening the Bible at a proper place in the second degree. The passage adopted in Amos in which the illusion is evidently the plumb line, an important emblem of that degree. Anchor. Of what is the anchor and emblem? The hope of glory, or of the fulfillment of all God's promises to our souls, is the golden or precious anchor by which we must be kept steadfast in faith and encouraged to abide in our proper station amidst the storms of temptation, affliction, and persecution. Yeah, I'm going to skip. Let me see what else I want to... Oh, apron. Let's read about this apron. What is the symbolism of the apron? There is no one of the symbols of speculative masonry more important in its teachings or more interesting in its history than the lambskin or white leather apron. Its lessons commence at an early period in the Mason's progress, and it is impressed on his memory as the first gift which he receives, the first symbol which is explained to him, and the first tangible evidence which he possesses of his admission into the fraternity. The color of a Mason's apron should be pure and unspotted white. The lamb has always been considered as an appropriate emblem of innocence, and hence we are taught in the ritual of the first degree that by the lambskin the Mason is reminded of that purity of life and rectitude, the purity of life and rectitude of conduct which is so essentially necessary to his gaining admission into the celestial lodge above, where the supreme architect of the universe forever presides. Ark of the Covenant. Who built the Ark of the Covenant, and of what was it composed? The Ark of the Covenant was a chest originally constructed by Moses at God's command, in which were kept the 2 tablets of stone on which were engraved the 10 commandments. It was at first deposited in the most sacred place in the tabernacle, and afterward placed by Solomon in the sanctorium of the temple, but was lost upon the destruction of that building by the Chaldeans. Archives. What was used as the archives of the temple? Our traditions state that the holy of the cylinder of the pillar Boaz and Jachin was used as the archives of masonry, and contained the sacred rolls which comprise the history of the Hebrew nation, their civil and religious life, the works of the prophetical and inspired writers, and the complete universal system. Atheist. What is an atheist? An irregulous libertine, one who denies the existence of an intelligent supreme being. A belief in God is one of the landmarks of the order. Babylonian activity. What year was the beginning of this captivity? Oh, Babylonian captivity. What year was the beginning of this captivity? The Jews had fallen into great errors and corruptions, and were guilty of most abominable sins. Wherefore, Jehovah in his wrath denounced heavy judgments against them by Jeremiah and other prophets, declaring that their fruitful land should be spoiled, their city become desolate, and an abomination, and them themselves their descendants, and an abomination, and them themselves and their descendants feel the effects of his displeasure for the space of 70 years, which commenced in the 4th year of the reign of Jehoiachin. 3,398. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, destroyed the temple and took them into captivity. Beast of the earth. Where is the beast of the penalties recorded in the Bible? This expression is recorded in the book of Jeremiah and is a part of the basis of the system of speculative science. Where is the basis of the penalties recorded in the Bible? Okay, this is the page I was reading, but we gonna keep going. My bad, forgot to switch it. What is the Blue Lodge? What is the peculiar characteristics of the color blue. The 3 degrees of symbolic masonry are clothed in or ornamented with blue. It is a color of truth or fidelity, and it is a remarkable fact that the brethren have ever remained true to the blue degrees, while the authenticity of the other degrees have often been disputed, and in many places altogether denied. This durable and beautiful color was adopted and worn by our ancient brethren, and the peculiar characteristics of an institution which has stood the test of ages, and which is as much distinguished by the durability of its materials or principles as by the beauty of its superstructure. Superstructure. It is an emblem of universal friendship and benevolence, and instructs us that in the mind of a Mason, those virtues should be as expansive as the blue arch of heaven itself. Honestly, family, I'm wondering if I'm going to keep reading. Hold on. Who granted permission to the Jews to build the second temple? The foundation for the second temple was laid 537 BC after returning from captivity. The Jews under Zerubbabel laid the foundation. When the people of the land offered to assist in rebuilding the temple, Zerubbabel and the principal men of Judah refused them this honor, since Cyrus had granted his permission to the Jews only. Okay. Let's read a few of these. What cord was used by the Masons during the Middle Ages? The threefold cord was very much cherished by the Mason masters during the Middle Ages, as well as the companions of the world arch of today. Cornerstone. What is the symbolism of the cornerstone? The cornerstone is the cone that is the stone that lies at the corner of two walls. It forms the corner of the foundation of an edifice. In Masonic buildings, it is now always placed in the northeast, but this rule was not always formally observed. The symbolism of the cornerstone, when duly laid with Masonic rites, is full of significance, which refers to its form, to its situation, to its presence, and to its consecration in Masonic symbolism. It signifies a true Mason, and therefore it is the first character which the apprentice is made to represent after his initiation has been completed, Jacob. Covenant of Masonry. What is a covenant or obligation? A covenant is defined to be a contract or agreement between two or more parties on certain terms, and there can be no doubt that when a man is made a Mason, he enters into a covenant with the institution on his part. He promises to fulfill certain promises and to discharge certain duties, for which on the other part the fraternity bind themselves by an equivalent covenant of friendship, protection, and support. Covenant Jewish. How were the old Jewish covenants performed? The first mention of a covenant in form that is met with the scripture is that recorded in the 15th chapter of Genesis, where to confirm it, Abraham, in obedience to divine command, took a heifer, a she-goat, and a ram, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against the other. In the book of Jeremiah, it is again alluded to, and the violation of the covenant is also expressed. These ceremonies briefly allude to in the past sages which have been quoted were performed in full as follows. The parties entering into a covenant first select a proper animal, such as a calf or a kid among the Jews, a sheep among the Greek, or a pig among the Romans. The throat was then cut across with a single blow, so as to completely divide the windpipe and arteries without touching the bone. This was the first ceremony of the covenant. The second was to tear open the breast, to take from thence the heart and vitals. And if on inspection the least imperfection was discovered, the body was considered unclean and thrown aside for another. The third ceremony was to divide the body in twain, and to place the two parts to the north and south, so that the parties to the covenant might pass between them, coming from the east and across to the west. The carcass was then left as a prey to the wild beasts to the field and the vultures of the air, and thus the covenant was ratified, and the Masonic student can readily understand how these old Hebrew covenants parallel speculative science as part of the basis of the system. Craft. Oh yeah. Craft. What does the word craft signify? The term applied to persons collectively in a trade or mechanical occupation. In free or speculative masonry, it signifies the whole Masonic fraternity, wherever disparate dan. Let me read. Okay, I'm going to read about geometry. In Masonry, what art does geometry refer to? Among mathematical sciences, geometry is the one which has the most special reference to architecture, and we can therefore, under the name of geometry, understand the whole art of Freemasonry. In Anderson's Book of Constitutions, Freemasonry is frequently called geometry, and of the latter he said of the whole being of the order is comprehended in it. Freemasons therefore ought to make themselves intimately acquainted with geometry. It is not absolutely necessary to be able to deduce all our actions, works, or resolutions from geometrical principles. Okay. Hold on, let me go back real quick, family, just in case I don't let y'all say, oh yeah, I saw it because I read the craft. Yeah, I got that. Hat. What's hat? In the Western world, the nations uncover their head when they enter a place of worship. The Easterns uncover their feet. To keep the head covered while all around stand uncovered is a token of superiority and rank of office, the badge of his authority. Also Josh. Hat. Read that again. In Western world, the nations uncover their head when they enter a place of worship. The Easterns uncover their feet. To keep the head covered while all around stand uncovered is a token of superiority. To keep the head covered while all around stand uncovered is a token of superiority and rank of office, the badge of his authority. Okay. In the Western world, the nations uncover their head when they enter a place of worship. The Eastern uncover their feet. To keep the head covered while all around stand uncovered is a token of superiority and rank of office. That almost sounds like the Shriners. I don't know, I guess I was just thinking about that. Let's see. Heaven. What is the Masonic allusion to heaven? Symbolically speaking, heaven is the foreign country into which the master mason seeks to enter in search of wages. Heaven, the higher state of existence after death in the foreign. Immortality. By what is immortality symbolized? In speculative science, the symbol of immortality is the Akai, or evergreen. Let's go to the next one. Jacob's ladder. Let's start there. What is the Masonic symbolism of Jacob's ladder? It is a symbol of progress. Its three principal rounds, representing faith, hope, and charity, present us with the means of advancing from earth to heaven, from death to life, from mortal to immortality. Hence, its foot is placed on the ground floor of the lodge, which is typical of the world. Its top rests on the covering of the lodge, which is symbolic of heaven. Jah. What is the name Jehovah in poetry and where recorded? Jah is the name Jehovah in poetry and it's recorded in Psalms. I don't want to read none of those. Let's read light. What is the symbolism of light? Light is a symbol of knowledge. It is the ultimate desire of every Mason to be well informed on Masonry. And may every Mason strive constantly for light, and especially for light eternal. He who introduces light into the lodge must be a worthy man and experience in the craft also. Okay, let's read some of this. Mahar Shalah Hashbaz. In Templarism, what does this word refer to? Signifies speeding to pray, name of Isaiah's son, symbolizing the Assyrian conquest of Damascus. Mason. What is the derivation of the word Mason? As a practical question, we are compelled to reject all fanciful derivations which connect the Mason etymologically and historically with the Greeks and Egyptians or the Druids, and to take the word Mason in its ordinary signification of a worker in stone, and thus indicate the origin of the order from a society or association of practical and operative builders. We need no better root than the medieval Latin. Masonry. What is Masonry? The erection of buildings and consecrating them to the veneration of God. We will admit was the purpose of the builders of the ancient operative art, while the masons of the speculative science operate in a spiritual sense, employing the tools of the operative mason as symbols and using veiled allegories from the Bible to convey to their initiates a lesson in belief that there is life beyond the grave. Master of the Lodge. Why should a master of the lodge be well informed? Because if Masonry be, as it is defined, a science of morality clothed in allegory and illustrated by symbols, it is evident that a successful teacher and the master is in an empathetic sense a teacher, must equalify himself by a diligent investigation of these symbols and veiled allegories, the myths and legends of Masonry, their mystical application, and the whole design of the institution. In this, its most important feature, must constitute his study. St. Mark. Okay. Master builder. What is a master builder? In an operative sense, a high intellect artificer and architect, a skillful worker, who with proper materials such as was furnished by Solomon and Hiram, king of Tyre, and placed in the hands of such a man as the widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, we may readily understand the magnificence of such an edifice as Solomon's temple. However, with reference to speculative science and that spiritual builder, we cannot lose sight of that builder who erects the temples of living stones, teaching strict rectitude and justice toward his fellow men, and that their demeanor should be marked by the level of courtesy and kindness, while uprightness of heart and integrity of action, symbolized by the plumb, should be their distinguishing characteristics. And thus, guided by the movable jewels of masonry, they may descend the veil of life and joy in hope of being accepted by the Most High as successful candidates for admission into the Grand Lodge above one Kings. Oh, I forgot to switch. Oh, no, I switched over. Master Mason. What is the symbolism of a Master Mason and how represented? The Master Mason represents man. When youth, manhood, old age, and life itself have passed away as fleeting shadows, yet raised from the grave of iniquity and quickened into another and better existence by its legend and all its ritual, it is implied that we have been redeemed from the death of sin and the sepulchre of pollution. And the conclusion we arrive at is that youth properly directed leads us to honorable and virtuous maturity, and that the life of man, regulated by morality, faith, and justice, will be rewarded at its closing hour by the prospect of eternal bliss. Of eternal bliss. I'm gonna read metaphorical supports of Masonry. What are the metaphorical supports of Masonry? Wisdom, strength, and beauty, the three great pillars, or metaphorical supports. And it is significant coincidence and worthy of thought that the letters composing the English name of deity should be the initials of the Hebrew. Words wisdom, strength, and beauty. Okay. Those that look out the window be darkened. What is the allegorical meaning of this expression? Refers to man when the eyes become dimmed with old age. Tokens. What is the essential use of tokens? Signs, tokens, and words do not constitute Freemasonry, but are local marks whereby Masons know each other, and may be altered or entirely done away with without the least injury to scientific Freemasonry. It is with many Freemasons too absurd a belief in still more absurd practice to build our science upon so shallow a foundation as signs, tokens, and works, which I fear constitute with some the only attainment they look for in Freemasonry, that certain signals may be necessary. I do readily allow it, but deny that such mechanisms shall constitute a principal part of our institution. 12 original points. What were these original points? They were in the ancient English lecture used in the ritual from 1738 till 1813, when they were taken out and the 4 perfect points substituted. They constituted the basis of the system, and without which no man ever was or can be legally and essentially received into the order. Every candidate must pass through these forms and ceremonies. They are opening, preparation, report, entrance, prayer, circumambulation, advancing, obligation, entrusting, investing, placing, and closing. These points were symbolized by each one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob. Veiled allegory. What is veiled allegory? Synonymous with parable, saying one thing and meaning another. Is veiled allegory. In the New Testament, we find the saying of Jesus in veiled allegory. The same is used in Freemasonry to conceal from those except to whom the teachings rightly belong, the mysteries of speculative science, and then only to them that has desire to enter its caverns in search of the jewels. Wages of a master mason. What are the wages of a master mason? The operative mason in ancient times received and compensation for his labor. Corn, wine, and oil, the products of the earth, or whatever would contribute to his physical comfort and support, his labor being material. His wages were outward and material. The free and accepted mason, on the other hand, performed a moral work, and hence his reward is interior and spiritual. The enlightened brother finds his reward in the grand and gratifying results of his studies, and in the joyful results of his Masonic deeds. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll stop there. Yeah, I'm gonna stop there. I'm starting. Yeah. All right, family. I enjoyed you. I hope you enjoyed me in the reading of the Masonic Bible. Obviously, this is the beginner book, so obviously they got some more books out there that we gonna have to get our hands on to figure out what's going on. But I enjoyed y'all, family. I hope you enjoyed me. I hope you enjoyed this reading. So without further ado, I am a healthy, wise, strong, protected, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. I'll catch you later, family. Shalom. Be blessed. Hey, ended at 2:55. There you go. That's a good sign. We ended at the right time. Be blessed, family. 2:55. 2 hours 55 minutes.